You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. More than 150 corporate companies have urged Congress to enact the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Companies that are part of a group of corporate executives called Business for Voting Rights came together to write a letter supporting updating the Voting Rights Act. Amongst those companies, FS companies, Airbnb, Amazon, Apple, Ben & Jerry's, Homemade, Best Buy, Etsy, Eventbrite, Facebook, Google, H&M USA, The Hershey Company, IKEA US, Levi Strauss & Company, Lyft, Macy's, Microsoft, Nestle USA, Nextdoor, PayPal, PepsiCo, Square, Starbucks, Target, and Zoom. Their letter reads in part, Congress needs to amend the Voting Rights Act to restore necessary safeguards by updating the Voting Rights Act's coverage formula to prevent voting discrimination, as well as establish a more transparent and accountable system for states to report election law changes. Legislation amending the Voting Rights Act must help ensure that voters of color who remain the targets of voter suppression have equal and unfettered access to the democratic process. Okay. I got you on that one. But here's the deal, Robert. I think what's more powerful is if those companies added any member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, who does not vote for this, we will offer no financial support and will support their opponent. That gets their attention.
I think you're exactly right, and we saw that with the voting rights fight here in Georgia. After the state passed their voter suppression law, many people, including Reverend Jesse Jackson, Bishop Jackson from the AME Church, were supportive of a boycott of the state. We asked corporations to defund and divest from these candidates and people like Governor Kemp who were pushing voter suppression. We saw Major League Baseball move the All-Star game, which was in Colorado this week instead of Atlanta. But the same people who are willing to put up all these signs about diversity, who are able to run all these ad campaigns with people holding hands saying how we're all one and we're together. They'll rename a lobby in their building after some civil rights icon. When it came down to the rubber hitting the road, were they willing to give up the tax breaks that came from Republican states in order to oppose voter suppression? Were they willing to give up the real estate breaks they get to have their corporations headquartered in the South, or give up the employment law benefits they have by being in the South in order to fight back against voter suppression? No. They're willing to write a letter. They're willing to make a public statement, but when the rubber hits the road and it's time to actually do something to put your money where your mouth is, we've seen corporate silence, and we have to start calling out these corporations who are more than willing to give lip service to the issue of voter suppression and racial issues. But when it comes down to money, well, money has no, money is blind. It knows exactly where it's going to go and what it's going to do. And they have no interest in the social justice aspects, which they are just simply advertising on because they know that makes them look good to the public and makes them sell more sugar water or sell more hammers or whatever it is they sell.
Well, Robert, until the pressure is put on those companies, right? Until pressure is put on those companies vis-a-vis our black dollars not going to those companies anymore until they take a stronger stand, that's going to move them because their voting rights are being suppressed. The majority of their leadership and executive team and boards don't look like you and me and Roland. And so they'll write the letter and they support it, right? But what are they willing to put on the line for it? See, the person who is the victim of voter suppression, black people, are the ones who have the most vested interests. And it feels like Biden is showing us that. Well, my vote not being suppressed, and I'm going to use so much political capital here because I got other political interests. But until those companies start losing revenues, and until black people are in a position of power where their rights are being violated in these positions of businesses, leadership of businesses, or leadership of the Senate and the House, then you're going to get the political support, right? But you're not going to get political support that is dispositive of changing the vote, passing the legislation. And I fear the Republicans at the state level and at the federal level have just, regardless of the 40 million difference, right? They are all about power. They don't care about winning the argument. They care about winning the vote. the power. They're much better at it than Democrats are. And so,
but actually, Scott,
you're able to move it's not going to happen.
But it's not just black folks, and that's the thing. Look, what these laws are doing.
Throw brown people
no. Follow me here.
That's fine.
No. And this is the point where what I have said for years to civil rights activists and these voting rights groups, you got to expand this. They are also they are targeting white, educated voters. They're targeting white students as well. And that's how this thing also has to be expanded to pull those folks in, Robert.
Excellent point. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct on that. And part of it is we've been in this fight for voters against voter suppression since the 1960s. Very few people in Appalachia, for example, understand that when they start closing down voter precincts and making it more difficult for black and brown people to vote, your broke white self gets included in that also. They're taking away your voice and your vote also. You're going to have the same issues getting a hold of those absentee ballots. Those absentee drop boxes are going to affect you the same way. Cutting down on the hours that you can vote are going to affect you the same way. So we have to make that argument, that rainbow argument, that Cesar Chavez argument, that across the board, this is a top of the economy versus the rest of us conversation, and get those people on board, because you have folks running around here living in trailers and in the backwoods of West Virginia and so on and so forth, having no idea what Joe Manchin is doing to their right to vote by standing with many of these Republicans and not standing up against the filibuster. So we have to make the argument to them so that they can understand the reason that you were in the reason you still work in a coal mine, the reason people are still getting black lung, the reason that you don't have infrastructure in your communities is because your vote does not count the way that it should, and the way to secure that is by passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and by passing the For the People Act.
Well, yeah, but there are not enough of those people right now, right? I mean, that's great in concept, but there's not enough of those people. And then they're listening to the Republicans who are blaming black and brown people and Democrats for their poor plight in this country. And so poor people, just because you have poverty of the pocket doesn't mean you have to have poverty of the mind. And so many of our poor people in this country have poverty of the mind because they're listening to Republicans who don't have their best interests and will fool them every time. It is the second biggest lie of what the Republicans say to the poorest 10 states who get more benefits from federal government, and yet these white folks who are poor and disenfranchised continue to support them because of the second biggest lie that the Republicans have ever told in this country. And so again, all of this is about the future, but our future is now with this voting rights piece, because 2043 is right around the corner, and the Republicans are fighting for that. This is their last stand, and I got to tell you, we're not there in beating them yet because we don't have the votes. And at the state level, they continue to make it difficult for us to exercise our rights to vote because that's the only way they can win. You wouldn't have voter suppression if they could win without it. They know they can't win without it. And they're going to fight to the death to suppress this vote because that's the only way they hold on to state power, federal power, political power, economic power, and hold on to some control in this country. And that's the problem. What's the solution?
And that's why we got to keep giving them hell. All right. Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in black-owned businesses, the black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.